Good times for a change. See the look I've had.
It's going to be quite a while until we can put those raincoats away.
So please, please, please.
Well, it comes as no surprise, there's further rain in the forecast.
Let me get what I want this time.
It's another wet one for most parts of the UK.
See the life I've had can make a good man bad. So for once in my life,
will it ever stop raining? And why is it raining so much?
Lord knows it would be the first time. Lord knows it would be the first time.
There appears to be no end in sight to February's relentless weather.
Yes, unfortunately, the British winter has finally won out. We were able to battle against the frozen fairways and the temporary greens, but quite literally historic levels of rain that we haven't seen for over a century have resulted in course closures up and down the country. It was bound to happen eventually, and sadly this week we finally ran aground. But golf finds a way, and even amid the closures and the wet and the wind and the winter, I have been managing to improve my golf game. So for this week's episode, I'm going to take you through a whistle-stop tour of the 5 things that I have been doing over the past week or so to upgrade my golf game, even amid these torrential downpours and horrific conditions. And while it may not be ideal, I can confidently say that I am getting better. Obviously, I would love to be able to put that to a proper test out on the course, and that should be happening soon enough. It is slowly starting to dry out. But despite that, I can say that my game is improving, and here's just how I've been managing to do that over the past week or so. The first thing is kind of fundamentally practice, but specifically the structured, planned practice that I outlined on a video a few weeks back. Now, if you are a golfer who spends time practicing, but without a set plan each day, each time you go up to the range, I cannot recommend enough putting some structure in place to your practice sessions and going in each time with a plan. Doesn't have to be my plan, but just having a plan is guaranteed, I would say, to give you better results, more return on the time you're putting in, and just give you a sense of achievement when you leave the range, which I certainly had found sometimes was lacking when I would just go in and somewhat mindlessly or vaguely with a plan in mind, go from one thing to the next. Now I have a set number of things I want to do, a set amount of time I want to spend doing each, and I can categorically say that my practice time has never been more productive. So just as an illustration of one of these sessions recently, now this session actually took place at the range rather than the simulator. The reasons for that will become clear later in this video. I went through the stack system warm-up. I use their guided warm-up most days. At the moment, it takes about 15 to 16 minutes. And then I did a speed training session using the stack. We'll go into more detail on that later in this video as well. But that is just a great way to get warmed up and loosened up before a practice session. And then I was on to some of the technical work and drills that I've been doing in my lessons with Anders. And the primary focus at the moment is to get this shallowing of the club, or really just try to achieve that more in to out swing path. My biggest swing flaw, my biggest negative tendency is to swing over the top. So I'm really working hard on coming more in to out. You can see here I've got the rubber tees in a sort of curved line along where I want my swing path to go. If I come over the top, I'm going to hit those and splatter them all over the driving range. And you can see here that I am actually managing to achieve this, not just in terms of missing the tees, but if we go from the top of my backswing, you can see that those hands actually go downwards rather than chopping towards the ball. So it is having some positive effect, and we are making progress in that regard. As I try to do, I don't want to just rake and hit. I try to go through a full pre-shot routine. The between each one of my shots. You can see here moving the tees in, giving myself less margin for error and making things harder for myself as I go. Now, the next thing I did after that, and I've been doing more of recently, again, I know that this is super beneficial. I've just been slack on it until recently, is doing the differential and more variability practice as preached by people like Adam Young. I mentioned it in my practice plan video. I would highly recommend reading his book or doing his 8-week course. And essentially what this is trying to push to the different extremes of face strike, ground contact, face direction, etc., so that you can come back to the middle, pushing deliberately from one end to the other so that you are able to calibrate your golf swing when you go out and play. I won't reveal everything that's in the 8-week course. I didn't sign an NDA, but this is someone else's business we're talking about. But the core thing that I've taken away from it are these sort of skill ladders whereby you go through doing different tasks, and as you achieve one, you go up to the next difficulty. Again, typically with things like face strike, face direction, all of that kind of stuff. So in this session here, I was working on my direction, and this ladder in particular asks you to pick 2 targets out on the range, a certain width apart, and then just make sure you can get your ball to land in between those targets, initially with differing swing lengths. So you start off with a putting stroke, a chipping stroke, and then move on to a pitching stroke, which is what I was doing here, pitching the ball between the targets you can see marked out on the screen. The idea here is that if you can get 7 out of 10 or more in between those targets, you then go up to the next step in the skill ladder. In this case, that meant going from a pitching swing to a full swing. And again, I need to get 7 out of 10 in between this target using a full swing. If I achieve that, then I continue, but I do a smaller and smaller width of target down the driving range. Now that is the calibration section of the direction grid. For the variability section, I had to do something similar, but align myself to the outer edge of a target and make sure that the ball curved back into within that target that I picked out on the range. So here you can see me using a pitching swing. I am aligned to the right-hand edge of my target, and I just need to make sure that the ball doesn't go any further right, but curves back in between the targets I picked out. And now you can see me lining up to the left edge of that same boundary. Now I have to make sure the ball fades back in between those targets, not going any further left. Once I was able to do that with a pitching swing, I was able to move up to a full swing, trying to hit a little draw with, I think, a 7-iron here, making sure, again, it lands between those 2 targets. From there, I moved on to Golf Blueprint. Now, again, this is something that I mentioned briefly in my practice plan video. This is gamified skill cards. You get sent a number of new cards each month, and this will test out your abilities with everything from putter to driver, wedges, and so on. The point of this is to give you a focus outside of your mechanical swing movements to try and achieve whatever it is that the card is asking for. Now, the card in this instance was called Curtain Call, and it asked me to take my club for a 175 to 195 shot and hit 9 controlled fades, starting at the left of a target that I picked out down the range and fading to the right just off center. Never short, never left. Obviously, it just so happens that this task was somewhat similar to what I was doing with the Adam Young stuff in terms of hitting a fade from the boundary to within a certain target, but with a much longer club in this instance. The second card was called 357 Magnum. Now, this asked me to pick my second most lofted club and then hit shots to 30, 50, and 70 yard carry distances. You can see here that I'm using the stack radar just to track those carry numbers. Again, this is just gamification. It's getting you out of mechanical thoughts and asking you to achieve a given result in the same way that you would have to do when you're actually out on the golf course. And then the third card was called Wimbledon. This was a driver task where I had to pick 2 targets out in the distance, hit 1 best full send drive and then 4 second serve drives, making sure that the second serve drives land in that corridor and then just giving it the beans with the best drive. Unfortunately, I was struggling rather with my driver on this day, but again, this is where having a structured plan and something like this is actually really helpful because it gave me an allotted amount of time to work on this, and then I would move on to something else rather than just getting more and more frustrated and whacking drivers endlessly until I found something in my swing. Another benefit is that it keeps things varied. I was then off to the putting green for must make, where I basically had to hole a 10-foot putt. The idea was to do this for 10 minutes and then track how many I made over the course of that 10 minutes, simulating a pressure putt in, say, a tournament situation where you need to make it. The final card was the Joe King that asked me to find basically the longest putt I could on the practice green, putt 3 balls from that target towards a cup, and then putt out the last one to see if I could 2-putt. Kind of accidentally made the first one and then managed to 2-putt the second. Now, as I say, these have been the most productive practice sessions I've ever had. It is a really refreshing experience to go in knowing exactly what I'm going to work on and for how long. I don't get distracted, I don't get too frustrated, and I come away feeling like I achieved something in a way that is sometimes difficult to do if you're just grinding on mechanics, position, swing thoughts, etc. I am still doing a bunch of that. There is a lot of swing work that I need to do on the mechanical front. But again, even for that, I have the drills I'm working on and I have the specific swing feels that I'm working on from my lessons. And I'm kind of running through those and trying not to get too distracted with anything else. Now, the reason this and a couple of my practice sessions recently have been at the driving range as opposed to in the simulator brings me to the second thing that I have been doing to upgrade my golfing game/life during this recent terrible weather. Well, you may remember this room looking slightly different last time we were in here. I have taken the opportunity while the weather is so bad, it's been a break in kind of travel and on-course play to do some sim upgrading. So obviously it has been painted. Several people asked why I didn't paint it before bringing all of the tech and the enclosure in, etc. Fair question. Very simple answer was just impatience. The build was a month late already and I felt like I needed the sim ready and I needed to start using it. So had it in place for 2-3 weeks and then had a kind of little gap. So it has now been painted. Thankfully managed to do it without actually getting the enclosure down and out of here. Just took the screen and everything else out of here. So now I am in the process of bringing everything back in, but also just kind of neaten it up, make things a little bit better before. I have a desk. I know where everything wants to go now. It felt a little bit temporary before. Obviously, it looks a lot nicer in here now, a lot brighter, feels a lot bigger. The projector had to be moved, etc., etc. So this is essentially moving towards the permanent state of the simulator. So I'm going to start putting that together now. As I say, all I've got in here right this second is the enclosure. Need to bring the screen, the mat, the PC, the launch monitor, all of that back in. And then come the end of this process, hopefully in just a few hours, I will have a prettified, fully functional simulator space once again. Okay, well that took really quite a long time to build what is fundamentally quite a simple desk. Did say on the product reviews, good, instructions aren't really good. And I would concur with that. Anyway, it's up and as you can see, it fills the corner space rather nicely. So once I've got the PC and the screen back in, then it will be a rather more pleasant experience than before where I was basically lying on the floor. So that is step one. I'm going to go and get a ladder now and get the screen hung. Right, it is a new day. It is cold and wet, obviously, because it always is. But progress. I've started bringing the tech in. I've hung the screen. There it is. What I'm going to do is hook everything up, bring the launch monitor back in, get all the tech hooked back up, get the projector up and running. I'm going to steam the screen. Watch the YouTube video about that, get some of the creases out now that this is the more permanent setup, and then really bring the mat in, get everything aligned, calibrated, etc. And then hopefully we are back up and running. Okay, we are back up and running. Seems like a lot of wires, doesn't it? One day we'll need less wires for things. I suppose I could just get a wireless mouse and keyboard, but that seems like unnecessary expense at this rate. Okay, PC's up and running, gonna go grab the launch monitor. this is doing anything. If that's doing nothing, I think it's a question of patience rather than anything else. Oh well. Okay, so I'm going to bring in some of the other fitness kit, the bench, the dumbbells, etc. But basically, golf-wise, we are back up and running, and I will make some additions, probably a bag stand and maybe a locker and a couple of other bits and pieces just to store all my accessories. But essentially, we're back up. We have got the sim, the projector realigned, the mat back in, the launch monitor back in, PC, etc. And it's all a bit nicer and frankly quite a lot brighter and more pleasant in here, and also better for filming. Now, one of the other game improvement avenues I've been pursuing, which wasn't weather dependent thankfully, and I mentioned a little while ago in my goals episode, is speed training. I'm actually due a speed training session now. My Stack app is going to get sad at me if I don't do one today. So I thought I'd provide just a quick update as to what my numbers were looking like so far. I will do a more comprehensive update on this and a kind of review progress video when I have done some more of the Foundations program. So far, I have done 7 sessions. And it's already proving quite interesting, I think. My driver E speed, which is kind of the headline number, essentially the Stack is slightly shorter than driver and weighted slightly differently. So they use your speed of swinging the Stack with a certain amount of weight on it to estimate your driver swing speed and thus your distance potential. That started out at 99 miles per hour. 7 sessions later, I have hit a best of 106, and my most recent session was 103. It doesn't go up linearly. You know, some days I'm feeling better or more warmed up or whatever it might be. So the best I have seen so far is 106, up from 99. That happened on my 5th session, so that is quite quick progress. And as for the distance potential of those gains, that would take me from 265 to 286 potential carry at that swing speed. Now, I am not hitting it that far. Obviously, that assumes center strikes and optimizations and so on and so forth. And as I say, that isn't my most recent number, but that is what I've seen so far. So I'm hopeful that if I've got that in 7 sessions, then when I'm through the Foundations course and continuing to do this, I will see some significant distance gains when I do finally get to go out on a golf course. And who knows, maybe I have gained some actual distance, and we will see as soon as things dry up. Certainly it wouldn't hurt to get some run out at the moment. So that is my speed training at the moment. Obviously, being able to do it in here as opposed to on a drizzly driving range, which I have done a couple of times recently, is preferable. So I'm going to do my 8th Stack session now. I will check in on the numbers in another vlog or 2. And then, as I say, I will do a more comprehensive review progress, how much speed I gained over maybe the course of the Foundations protocol when I hit that point. One thing I will say, I might have mentioned this previously, is the Stack warm-up is fantastic. Even if you're not doing a speed training session, if you're just doing a range session, a practice session, or playing a round of golf, it's a really, really good warm-up, and it shines a light, I think, on how poorly warmed up, I'm not going to say all of us are, but I know a lot of us are, and certainly I was in general, versus doing something proper like this. It's guided via the app. It takes about 15 minutes, which is a lot longer than I would concertedly warm up for, even when I was doing a proper warm up or a proper warm up. So I really, really like the Stack warm up for basically anything, even if it's not a speed training session. I'm pretty sure you can find the warm up videos on the YouTube channel or on their socials or somewhere, even if you're not a Stack subscriber. So it might be worth checking that out if you're not and you want to warm up better, which, as I say, I think is somewhere where we all have quite a lot of room for improvement. sufficiently warmed up now that I've shed a layer and removed my hat, despite how bad my hair looks. So stack warm up does work. So I'm going to do a session now and I'll give you numbers at the end. Okay, so that is all the sort of presets done, and now it is 4 max effort swings with 195, and that is what gives you the driver e-speed and thus your kind of working number and distance potential. So 4 last swings now. Well, unfortunately no records today. E-speed 103 again, so just hovering around that at the moment. It's up slightly from when I started, but it's obviously hit a little bit of a plateau. Not necessarily feeling my best today, but good workout, out of breath, and as I say, this is something that I can do whatever the weather, so we'll be forming part of the training plan over the course of the season. I know some people have said distance isn't an issue, plenty long enough, etc., but the numbers just are pretty transparent that more distance equals more strokes gained and lower scores. So I'm going to keep doing this. It's good exercise. It's good for my range of motion, and love to see how it translates on the course, hopefully very soon. Well, what better way to continue the hopeful improvement than with another lesson. I am back here at Leicester Golf Centre for my next lesson with Anders. Could be an interesting one today. I've showed up the last few times thinking I hadn't made much progress or that something was going wrong, and basically my assumptions had all been incorrect, either in terms of there had been progress or what was going wrong. This time I feel like I have been making some progress. I feel like some of the stuff I've been doing in the sim and at the range to try and get my path numbers a bit better has been present. Certainly the path numbers on my launch monitor have been better than what we've been seeing here, and doing some of the drills, kind of missing the balls or the barriers, etc. That's been successful. So perhaps this time I'll show up thinking I have made some progress and I'll be told I haven't. But as ever, I'm sure Anders will know what's going on. It's a difficult one as well because I haven't really been able to put my game to the test. This ceaseless rain being what it has been, I haven't played, I think I've played once since my last lesson a couple of weeks ago because everything has been and is shut. So I don't really know is the long and the short of it, but I'm going to get warmed up now, go see Anders, and we will see what the diagnosis is.
The people watching this that are slicers, they benefit enormously from that. But if you do it too early or in the wrong order, I would make you worse. This is the best you've ever walked in. Overwhelming majority of top golfers, they look like that. Sweet. It might be a bit of pain, but it's great.
No, that's fine.
It's a great exercise.
It's pain throughout all of this. I didn't hit myself.
The next question I will usually get asked is, what about my driver?
Sure.
For me, it's just overcomplicated. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's how you should strike an iron. I'm going to say it, Joel, I think this is the best it's ever been.
Good news, I am not a totally delusional madman. Sometimes, anyway. I had moved my path numbers quite significantly. We'd gone from the 9s, 10s, sometimes even more. Today we're seeing 2 degrees, 1.5 degrees, half a degree left, which is eminently playable and well within the range of what we are happy with. We still want to push it. And kind of keep thinking about path because I think it's always going to be my tendency. But Anders said my swing was the best it had ever looked today, showing up there, which was obviously nice to hear, particularly when I put a lot of practice time in the last couple of weeks. And so we moved to some other exciting stuff regarding impact position, getting my hands forward sharply and all of those kind of things, and starting to be able to piece that together with path and releasing the club and all of that. It's starting to coalesce, at least in my head, and I think he and I both felt very positive about where things were and where things might go over the next couple of weeks. So that was great. And yeah, as ever, another good lesson. Full lesson to come on the channel soon. The winter golf improvement continues. So practice, an upgraded sim, speed training, another lesson, and a very encouraging one at that. And then the fifth and final thing I've been doing to upgrade my golf game in the last week or so is Decade. I mentioned this in passing a few videos ago, and I know a couple of people are aware of what it is, but essentially Decade is at its heart a course management strategy. It is the brainchild of a man called Scott Fawcett, who you can find on a number of golf podcasts, YouTube videos, etc. And really it is about helping you to make better strategic decisions when you are out on the golf course, primarily around target selection, but also around understanding things like shot patterns, dispersions, and how scoring is done effectively, and the mindset you need to get into to shoot your lowest scores on a consistent basis. It costs $125 for 6 months of access, and for that you get the app/the web dashboard, which gives you a few different things. The core offering is the Decade course itself, where you are taught about the course management and strategy and target selection, etc. And then there are also some drills and some stats tracking you can do through the dashboard or through the app. Interestingly, and kind of in contrast to a lot of online course offerings these days, the training is meted out over time. You can't just rush in and speed run the whole thing. It's taught over a 6-month period, and they will only give you the content in chunks. So you kind of have to be patient and wait for it to be doled out. I am at the end of month 2, and I'm kind of raring to go because we still haven't gotten to the secret sauce target selection portion of it yet. And for me, that's where I think the true value will lie. I have listened to Scott Fawcett on a lot of podcasts by now, and I have watched a number of YouTube videos on which he is featured. I'll link a couple in the description below. If you are brand new to Decade, I would highly encourage listening to some of those or watching some of those videos. It gives you a really good insight without having to pay for it as to what Decade is, why it exists, and how it can help players. But because I am familiar with this from listening to a lot of stuff already, so far the course is going over stuff that I already know, and I'm a little bit frustrated because I've paid for this access and I can't get to what I actually want. However, I do understand why it's being done this way. I think a lot of what needs to be conveyed in this teaching is about mindset, is about not chasing pins or not seeking birdies, or why it's not super wise to try and make every single putt, etc. And that is primarily what is being taught in the course in months 1 and 2. But if you are someone who is already fairly familiar with Decade and Scott's work, then like me, you might be just itching a little bit to get to the core offering of how to choose smarter targets and how to improve your core strategy when you are actually playing golf. As for the value of that, I can't really speak to it yet because, as I say, I have hit up against the 2-month barrier and I'm waiting for the good stuff to be released, which the videos promise me will start coming in month 3. It isn't the most modern presentations of an online course. A lot of this content was recorded in around 2019, 2020, based on some of the stuff that is said in the videos. It doesn't really feel like the portal or the content has been updated much since then. I guess that doesn't really matter. The crux of it is how valuable it is at teaching you course strategy. But in a world where there are so many online courses and so many of them are presented so slickly, or where apps are so intuitive and have such great UIs nowadays, it's a little bit jarring to be using something that feels like it's 10+ years old. If this is something that is new to you, if you've never thought about course management or course strategy, or you haven't come across Decade before, I think it's super interesting, and I know that there is value to be found there. I certainly know that there are a lot of people out there who credit this system with a significant drop in their scores, even without doing any work on their swing or practicing more or anything like that. And so if you are someone who's looking to improve your scores or lower your handicap, then that has got to be worth a little bit of an outlay for the 6 months access that you would get. As for me, I think my course strategy is okay for a golfer of my level, but I do know it can be improved. So I am just waiting for the gates to unlock on months 3 and beyond in Decade, so that I can really dig into that and hopefully improve it even further. And I would love it if this could help me shave maybe just 1 or 2 strokes off the handicap in pursuit of the scratch goal. But as I say, as far as the course material is concerned, I haven't gotten to the good stuff yet, so I can't really pass full judgment on that. Watch this space and I will do a full review sum up video when I've gone through the entire course in a few months' time. So yes, an unfortunate but perhaps inevitable week lacking in on-course action. However, I am pleased that I've managed to keep progressing, keep improving my golf game nevertheless, and hopefully this provides you with a little bit of insight into what I am doing and maybe some things that you can copy too to keep your game progressing even in the depths of winter. There is a lot of golf on the agenda in the next few days, in fact, and weeks to come. So we will be back out with the on-course action as soon as possible. So lots to look forward to. As ever, thank you so much for watching and for your continued support. And I will see you in the next one.